It's good to care about writing, but it doesn't need to turn into worrying about writing. Welcome back. As always, it's good to see you. Today, I thought we'd take a little bit of time to talk about the gift that keeps on giving. Writing anxiety. I see it in students who drag their feet to turn in papers because they just don't think they can write well enough. I hear about it from people who spend time thinking about that book they want to write someday rather than writing it. I run into it in the academic literature. I even experience it myself when I realize I've been putting off working on a video because I don't think I have a good enough idea. For many writers, writing anxiety is part of the air we breathe in a concentration somewhere between oxygen and argon. It's a real thing, and it's probably not something that any one video will fix once and for all, but I do think a refreshed mindset can help, and that's what I want to talk about. Plus, to lighten the mood and put us all at ease, I thought I'd redecorate a little. I think things are looking up for all of us. But anyway, without delay, let's talk about approaching your writing as nothing more nor less than something you practice regularly. When I was in high school, I was part of the orchestra, so a lot of people knew that I played the violin, and because I played it reasonably well, there were a lot of people who thought that when I went to college, I was going to major in music. So when I told them that there wasn't a chance of that, they were always caught by surprise. For the very few people who knew about my writing, though, my decision to major in English, at least for my first year of school, was no surprise at all. And there were, and maybe are, two major reasons why I find writing to be more hospitable territory for me than music. The first is that while they both require practice, I find the practice of making sure that subjects and verbs agree and that every punctuation mark is in its place so much more engaging than the practice of playing scales and repeating the same three measures of a sonata over and over at different speeds. In other words, for me at least, the boring part of writing is still fun. The boring part of playing an instrument, though, is, well, boring. The other thing that appeals to me, though, is that when I write, there's never a performance looming on the horizon. When you play an instrument and mess something up on stage, you don't get credit for all the times you played that same thing well in your living room. Not so with writing. It never has to go out into the world until it's ready. And then it's not like you have to write it from scratch all over again in the moment. It's already written, already set. There just isn't the same threat of mistakes in the moment that I felt performing music. But while writing doesn't come with anxiety in performing, it does, of course, still come with anxieties. I guess, given the choice, I find writing's anxieties more palatable, but they are still anxieties, and when it comes down to it, they may not be all that different from the anxieties of performing a musical instrument. Because what room really is there for anxiety when you're sitting in a comfortable spot listening to soft music awash in the scent and glow of a candle? These are not the circumstances of anxiety. There's no crowd of self-important snobs comparing your performance to the soloist they heard in London last summer and tut-tutting from the mezzanine. It's just you and the page. How terrifying. But that anxiety can be real, and I'd suspect that for many of us, just like with the anxieties I felt with music, it comes from real or imagined pressures that have to do with how your work will be received. It gets too hard to write now because you start to worry that what you're writing right now doesn't measure up. What if it's terrible? What if it's no good? What if nobody wants to read it? No publisher wants to print it? No reviewer wants to praise it? What if, by writing this poem or essay, you are, word by disgusting word, sabotaging your future and destroying your life? Now, I'm all for the power of poetry, but let's be honest, there's not a poem in the world that's that important. So you're gonna be okay. There's almost nothing at stake. But it feels like it, and that's fair, so long as that feeling doesn't defeat you. Musicians prepare for performances by practicing. They play the notes and phrases over and over so that it becomes nearly automatic. They internalize the music by spending time with it in practice rooms and studios before they take it to concert halls and amphitheaters. And you can do the same thing with your writing. That is, just think of whatever you're doing as practice. Are you writing the first paragraph of a research paper and worrying that it won't get you an A? Well, guess what? Nobody's grading that paragraph right now. You're just practicing writing first paragraphs. Worried that your dialogue isn't going to get you a book deal? Well, I don't see an editor in the room right now, So don't worry about that. Just focus on practicing writing dialogue. See, when you practice, there are no stakes. Did you and your clarinet mess up that arpeggio? Nobody heard it but you. Did you and your keyboard misspell devastate? Nobody saw it but you. And what is drafting but practice? But it doesn't stop there. If you have a draft of a novel already written, you may be feeling the weight of revision. Surely this isn't practice. Now you have to actually make the thing good. Nope, tricked ya. It's still just practice. You're just practicing revision instead of drafting. There's still nobody in the room with you. It's just between you and your writing for the time being. You're not performing just yet, so don't worry about the performance and just have some fun with the process. But now you're ready to send your work out with the hope that it'll get published. Surely now you're allowed to worry. Nope, still practice. You're practicing the process of sending out manuscripts and probably practicing the skill of accepting rejection with grace. It's part of the gig, but it's still better than standing in a spotlight with a streak of rosin on your leg, willing yourself to play those high notes right just this once. When it comes to practice, I find the language of the yoga and meditation folks really compelling and humane. It's not about showing up and getting it right every time. Instead, it's about showing up in order to get better at it over time. And that's different. It's not about doing it perfectly all the time. It's about giving yourself more chances to get it right, at least some of the time. Writing anxiety is especially pernicious because it fools you into thinking that there's more at stake in what you're writing right now, and it prevents you from writing at all. And that's a problem because the less you write, the less chance you have to write something good. The fewer things you send out for publication, the fewer chances you'll have to get published. Send out one poem, and it has to be good enough. Send out 10, and only 1 or 2 of them have to be. If you adopt a practice mindset and say write 5 days a week, and then only write something good 10% of the time, that's still like 26 days of good writing. Let anxiety and the pressure to write genius work keep you from writing except for once a month on a free weekend, and now you're down to 12 days of good writing. If you're writing at 100%, which, let's be honest, probably isn't happening. Show up to practice regularly, and you'll give yourself a better chance to write something good than if you just wait for the times that your confidence outweighs your anxiety. You can't write something good if you don't write, and you'll give yourself a better chance of writing well if you just write more. Besides, writing is a skill that improves with practice. Not only are your odds better if you write more often, but the odds will get better as you gain experience. So don't let the anxiety that your writing isn't good enough prevent you from gaining that experience that will make your writing better. So yes, eventually we hope that there will come a day when readers all over the world will be enjoying your brilliant work. But worrying that it will never happen isn't going to get you there. Everything between now and then is just practice, and practice isn't about being good enough. It's about being consistent and getting better. Maybe you've just seen a video about the 10 mistakes that amateur writers make, and you happen to do all 11. But so what? Who cares? Nobody is calling you up to the microphone right now. You're not performing, you're practicing. And you don't need to worry about practice because, after all, it's just practice. So just keep practicing. Even if you did manage to write an earth-shaking debut novel, would you really want your first novel to be your best novel? Even then, you'd still just be practicing. So, no pressure. But really, there's literally no need for pressure. Unless, of course, you count the gentle pressure to like and subscribe. But even that pressure should stir you to action, not freeze you up. But anyway, hopefully you found this helpful. When it comes to writing, you've got just about nothing to lose. So go get 'em, and I'll be back here next week so you can tell me how it went.